let me just start off by saying Henry Cejudo is a legend in MMA. Like, he's done so much already in his short career, pretty much, relatively compared to all the other legends. He's not really had a long career, such as, Rampage Jackson, these OG fighters, but he's had a really, really good run at MMA. And someone who's coming over from the Olympics, wrestling, he's done really well for himself, considering who he's been and how far he's evolved compared to where he was when he first joined the UFC. Now, if you look at his record, he's beaten Demetrius Johnson, Sergio Perez, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz. And he's fought the likes of Aljamain Sterling and Merab, right? So if we go back and we look at what he's done, he's become a double champion. He's successfully captured 2 titles. He's defended both titles, if I'm not mistaken. And he's pretty much, done everything he needed to do, and he retired. But here's the thing about that. He retired at the wrong time. And this fucked up his career massively. This really, really messed up his career for the worst, really. Because Henry Cejudo was on a trajectory to where he could have got super fights. He could have got more money, more pay. And instead, he played his cards wrong, where he essentially just, shot himself in the foot by retiring because he thought he had power in the position he was at. But instead, he retired, and pretty much no one really missed him, even though he was a pretty big personality and he was a big star from what I've seen. But he wasn't big to the point where he had power over the UFC to where he could make those moves. Like, only a Conor McGregor, like a Khabib, or John Jones could do something like that. Even John Jones, he couldn't really pull that off successfully. But Henry Cejudo, he really, really overestimated his power and his star potential in the game. And he had a lot of star potential at first. Like, when he beat Dominic Cruz in COVID times, I remember watching that during lockdown, and I was thinking, why would you retire right now? And I thought it was just, a bluff, for the UFC to get him back, and it was, but it was a year, and then it turned into 2 years, and then 3 years until Henry actually came back and did something, and then he wasted time, he wasted years of his prime, and that obviously affected him. When he came back, he wasn't in his prime. He didn't really look the same against Sterling, even though he didn't look bad at all, but it wasn't the same killer we see Henry, against Marlon Moraes or TJ. He wasn't as ferocious, he just wasn't. He didn't have the same energy. I don't know if that's just my observation, but it seems to me as if Henry didn't come back the same, and he had injuries as well. He was getting older. He was talking about retirement even before he fought Merab. So you can imagine how this impacted his game when it was going up against him. And then he essentially got bullied for the final 2 rounds. And even though he did stun Merab, he kind of exposed the game in Merab's boxing, right? Inside the pocket, where he couldn't really do anything to Henry at the time. The first round went to Henry, and then the second 2 went to Merab, and the final 2 again were pretty dominant, to where it seemed that Merab had Henry, he was bullying him, and he couldn't really do anything to Merab. So it's unfortunate because Henry's a really good fighter and he had a lot of potential. He didn't even hit his ceiling in terms of his physical ability, his technical ability, and his star potential. He didn't really hit the ceiling as we wish he did, and I think he thought he was at his peak. He really wasn't. He didn't even hit his goals. He wasn't even successful either. He didn't really get it to reach his full potential, which is kind of sad because if you look at who he's beaten quite the murderer's role. That four stretch win streak was just insane. TJ, Marlon Moraes, Dominic Cruz, Demetrius Johnson back to back. And even though they're filled with controversy, it's still a really, really good win streak. That 4 stretch win streak, as the Weasel said, might be one of the best in MMA history. Is wild, the amount of competition he's beaten. And he arguably beat Aljamain. If I'm gonna be honest, I thought he won that fight when I was watching it live. And to see Aljamain win, I wasn't too fussed because I'm an Aljamain fan too. But again, it just sucks for Henry, man. He's been really unfortunate. And the fact that he got paid less than Mackenzie Dern is just insult to injury. Or I don't know how it goes, but you know what I mean. Bro, it's wild how he's been treated. This is a former 2 double champion, 2 double champion. I mean double champion, obviously. This is a former double champion, bro. And he's being treated as if he's just any regular fighter. And the fact that Dana White didn't even let him retire, on air and let Merab have his moment, that was the biggest moment of disrespect from Dana I've ever seen, it feels like. Because this is he's treating him like he's below. He's not below. It's Henry Cejudo. He's a legend. Let's keep it real. In my opinion, he's one of the best fighters of all time in his prime, that being. He's right there with DJ, because DJ and Henry are pretty much relative in terms of skill and who they can be in their primes. You guys will disagree with that, but it's just the truth. They're 1-on-1 really. And Demetrius beat him when he was 10-0 undefeated, but he was inexperienced compared to DJ, right? So to see him go down this route, I can't lie, it's kind of peak on Henry. But again, you have to realize that Henry screwed himself out big time. Like, for him to do what he did was a massive mistake on his part. He shouldn't have taken that much time out of his career. Let's even see how much time he took out. Okay, so against Dominic Cruz, right? He retired May 9th, 2020. That's when they fought. And then he came back exactly a year later. Well, 3 days before, 3 years or whatever. And then he went up against Aljamain Sterling, for the UFC bantamweight title. He didn't go back down to flyweight after that. He was done with flyweight. He even vacated the position of flyweight, right? I mean, the flyweight title. He ended up fighting Aljamain and he lost, unfortunately. A split decision, very close fight. And then a year later, he went to fight Merab, and that ended badly too, which is, it sucks. It sucks a lot because Henry, he had the potential. Again, Henry had so much potential. Like, people call him triple cringe or whatever, but it's true. Like, he had a lot of potential and he just fumbled it, which kind of hurts to see as a fan, because I actually like Henry, right? I really like Henry, and the fact that he threw it all away, which is kind of crazy. Like, I really believe Henry fumbled. He fumbled hard, even vacating that flyweight title. I understand you want to stay at bantamweight and do your thing over there, but you could have at least, calm down, come back up, calm down a few times, solidify your position at flyweight just a little bit more, and then move back up. Because fighting a washed up TJ Dillashaw, not washed up, sorry, like fighting a weight drain TJ Dillashaw is like, it looks good on the resume, but again, it's still not really the best win because TJ was weight drained, as we said before. He could have fought contenders at bantamweight and flyweight at least, do something with your career instead of just, wasting 3 years, because in that 3 years, you could have fought 3 to 6 or even 8 more times, you know what I mean? You could have got a lot more fights in there, before you actually start to retire, because he was already talking about injuries before. To see him go out like that, I can't lie, I don't know if that was the right move. Now we know for certain what he did was not right. Like, it wasn't correct at all for him to retire on top. If you're gonna just stay out of competition, then fine. But even then, you had a lot more in the tank and you just gave it all away. And you came back into competition way too late. Like, if he came back a year later and realized all this was going on, where he didn't really have the star potential and he was just doomed to, waste his prime sitting on the couch or whatever, then fine. But for you to come back now is way too late. And I think Henry realized this way too late, that he didn't have the pool that he imagined he did. Even against Henry. Not against Henry. Even against Aljo. Like, bro, the event didn't bang the same way I thought it would, because Henry's just not a big star like that. He could have been a superstar. He had star potential, but he fumbled that once again, right? And that's honestly just his fault. And now he kind of has to live with the fact that he fumbled the bag, really. This has been Shadzi. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, it's unfortunate that Henry had to go through all this, but he kind of brought it on himself a little,